500-million-year-old human footprint fossil baffles scientists. This is by the science staff Beyond Science TV. An ancient trilobite was stepped on by someone wearing shoes hundreds of millions of years ago. Wearing shoes. In the summer of 1968, an amateur fossil collector, William J. Meister, made a discovery of a lifetime 43 miles west of Delta, Utah. To his surprise, he found a fossilized human footprint about the size of a US 13 shoe stepping on a trilobite. So it could have been a man about 6 feet tall, I would say, and just about the size of people today. Now, trilobites only existed between 260 and 600 million years ago, so this makes it the oldest human fossil footprint ever discovered. Trilobites were small marine invertebrates related to crabs and shrimps. Scientists currently think humans emerged 1 or 2 million years ago and only began wearing such shoes a few thousand years ago. This archaeological discovery could be sufficient to overturn all conventional accepted ideas of human and geological evolution. According to science's currently accepted timeline of human existence on this planet, humans advanced enough to wear shoes would not have existed hundreds of millions of years ago. As one might expect, this sent shockwaves throughout the scientific communities, with excitement for a new paradigm shift as well as skeptical denial. Meister took the rock to a professor of metallurgy in the University of Utah, Melvin Cook, who suggested he show it to the university's geologists. But none of the geologists were willing to examine it, so Meister took it to a local newspaper called the Desert News, and it quickly became very well known around the country. This amazing find was presented on March 1st, 1973, in a creation-evolution debate at California State University, Sacramento. The creationist team, including Dr. Dwayne Gish of the Institute of Creation Research and Reverend Boswell of local Sacramento Church. The scientific team consisted of Dr. Richard Lemon of the University of California at Berkeley and Dr. Layard Stebbins of the University of California at Davis. Reverend Boswell said, "I have here something that pretty much destroys the entire geological column. It has been studied by 3 laboratories around the world and has been tested and found valid. It represents a footprint that was found at Antelope Springs, Utah, while digging for trilobites." The man was digging for trilobites, and these are trilobites here and here embedded. He was pointing to the photo. This is a brick mold of the trilobite footprint. Laughter. Of a human footprint with a trilobite in it. The man stepped on a living trilobite, thus burying him in the mud. This particular strata is dated Cambrian, supposedly 500 million years extinct before man arrived on the surface of the earth. The interesting thing about this photograph is that there is also heel marks, which would indicate that they were made by modern man. In the news conference, the skeptical curator of the Museum of Earth Sciences, University of Utah, James Madsen, dismissively said that there were no men 600 million years ago, neither were there monkeys or bears or ground sloths to make pseudo-human tracks. What man think could possibly have been walking about on this planet before vertebrates even evolved. Another astonishing trilobite fossil discovery was made in Antelope Springs, Arizona on July 20th, 1968 by Dr. Clifford Burdick, a consulting geologist from Tucson, Arizona, and he found an impression of a child's foot in a bed of shale. Quote, "The impression was about 6 inches in length, with the toes spreading as if the child had never yet worn shoes, which compressed the toes. There does not appear to be much of an arch, and the big toe is not prominent." End quote. This was shown to 2 geologists and paleontologists. One geologist agreed it seemed to belong to a human being, but the paleontologist's opinion was that no biological agent had been involved. Dr. Burdick affirmed, quote, "The rock chanced to fracture along the front of the toes before the fossil footprint was found. On cross-section, the fabric of the rock stands out in fine laminations, or bedding places. Where the toes press into the soft material, the laminations were bowed downwards from the horizontal, indicating a weight that had been pressed into the mud. Mr. Meiser claimed that when he had a geologist examine the print, the geologist offered him $250,000 for the print. Meiser asked him, "What are you going to do with it if I sell it to you?" The geologist replied, "I'm going to destroy it. It destroys my entire life work as a geologist." It's disappointing to think that some people would be willing to destroy such a monumental artifact that can reveal such a new perspective on a human heritage and our human heritage and its origins. Respected archaeologist Michael Cremo has written books on the subject of such examples of ancient artifacts, and he has learned that certain scientific institutions like the Smithsonian Institute make great efforts to maintain the concept of recent human evolution. He has documented several instances where they deny, defame, and even exile archaeologists for publishing their findings for peer review. Quote, "In defense of the dates obtained by the geologist, Virginia Steen McIntyre wrote in a letter March 30th, 1981, to Estella Leopold, Associate Editor of Quaternary Research. Quote, "The problem is, as I see it, much bigger than Huayatolco. It concerns the manipulation of scientific thought through the suppression of enigmatic data that challenges the prevailing mode of thinking," end quote. So can you imagine the implications of mankind around the world, learning or realizing that we are hundreds of millions of years older than we thought, and that we have been far more advanced than even we are today? The question and answers beyond this metaphoric open doorway could cause a ripple paradigm shift worldwide. And during the interview, Michael Cremo said, "The reactions in your questions are typical of a group that I call the fundamentalist Darwinists. They support the theory of evolution not for purely scientific reasons, but because it confirms to their prior commitments to a strict materialism. They do not want to hear me, and they do not want to hear anyone else. They don't want anyone else to hear me, so they say those kinds of things. Sometimes they try to stop me from lecturing at universities," end quote. Those really seeking the truth are open to the new information to learn from and examine the scientific findings naturally without bias. We may have to dig deep within ourselves to find the answers to the questions. After all, who are we and where did we come from? Why are we here? If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.